Broadsword calling Danny boy. Broadsword calling Danny boy. Over.
4 words that instantly send chills down the spine of any film buff who's ever had a fantasy about taking down Nazis while dressed like a rejected member of the Royal Shakespeare Company. Welcome to Where Eagles Dare, a World War II action thriller that somehow manages to combine Richard Burton's velvet baritone, Clint Eastwood's icy stare, and more double crosses than a daytime soap. This isn't just a war movie. It's a full-blown, snow-covered, sabotage-saturated spectacle where the mission is top secret, the body count is sky-high, and everyone's either a spy, pretending to be a spy, or thinking about becoming a spy. In this deep dive, we'll unpack the twisted plot, the wild production, the all-star cast, and the cultural impact of a movie that basically said, you know what would make World War II more exciting? Cable car gunfights and Richard Burton quoting poetry while dodging bullets. This is Man vs. Movies, and you're about to find out what happens when a war film gets injected with steroids, mystery novels, and an entire schnapps distillery. In the late 1960s, the war movie genre was booming, but it was also starting to get stale. Films like The Longest Day and The Great Escape had set a high bar, but by 1967, audiences wanted more adrenaline, more intrigue, and more charismatic actors wielding machine guns with morally ambiguous motives. Enter Alistair MacLean, the Scottish novelist whose previous bestsellers, like The Guns of Navarone, had already found box office success. Producers approached him with a simple pitch. Write something action-packed with twists, betrayal, and enough explosions to make Michael Bay blush. MacLean delivered, but in an unusual twist, he wrote the screenplay first. An almost unheard of move for a novelist. He created Where Eagles Dare as a tailor-made vehicle for actor Richard Burton, with the book version following after the screenplay was already in motion. Producer Elliot Kastner, known for sniffing out big ideas and putting big stars behind them, quickly set the wheels in motion. Burton, surprisingly, wanted something his children could watch. A bit of a departure from his usual whiskey-soaked dramatic monologues about despair. Where Eagles Dare offered the perfect blend: theatrical dialogue, snowy set pieces, espionage, and just enough gunfire to keep his young audience entertained without being entirely traumatized. To secure a transatlantic hit, Kastner added Clint Eastwood, then fresh off his iconic roles in Sergio Leone's Dollars trilogy. Eastwood's name would guarantee American interest, and more importantly, he'd bring a stoic, steely presence to balance out Burton's linguistic gymnastics. The result? A big-budget war film with Shakespearean dialogue, spaghetti western swagger, and enough plot twists to make Agatha Christie sit up and take notes. Alistair MacLean was no armchair adventurer. A veteran of the Royal Navy during World War II, MacLean served in the Atlantic and Mediterranean, an experience that deeply influenced his writing. He once said he only wrote about what he knew, and what he knew was danger, secrecy, and surviving impossible odds. By the time Where Eagles Dare was conceived, MacLean was one of the most successful thriller writers in the world, but frustrated with how his previous novels had been adapted, he decided to write Eagles directly as a screenplay, hoping to retain more creative control. He succeeded. The story came together in just 6 weeks. MacLean's script featured layered espionage, constant misdirection, and a tightrope walk of loyalties. Characters aren't just hiding secrets, they're practically marinating in them. And he wasn't afraid to subvert expectations. Just when you think you've figured out who the good guys are, the film pulls the rug out, and then sets fire to the rug. Following the screenplay's completion, MacLean novelized the story, publishing it in 1967. The book was a success, but it's the film that has endured as a genre classic. By the time Burton strapped on his paratrooper boots for Where Eagles Dare, He was already one of the world's most celebrated actors, and one of its most controversial. Known for his volcanic talent and volcanic temperament, he dominates stage and screen alike with performances in Hamlet, The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. A classically trained actor from Wales, Burton brought a Shakespearean gravitas to every role, even when he was firing a machine gun. Major Smith is the brains of the operation, a British intelligence officer whose stiff upper lip could slice through granite. He's witty, mysterious, and always 5 steps ahead of everyone else. Burton makes him both authoritative and slippery, a man who you trust implicitly, right up until you start wondering if maybe he's the real villain. Eastwood at this point was transitioning from international spaghetti western icon to Hollywood leading man. Best known for The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, he brought a quiet menace and ruthless efficiency to Schaefer, an American ranger who'd rather shoot first, second and third before asking questions. While Burton does the verbal fencing, Eastwood does the actual fencing, with bullets. His scenes often play out with minimal dialogue and maximum violence. The contrast between Eastwood and Burton, American minimalism versus British verbosity, is one of the film's greatest strengths. A brilliant and underappreciated actress, Yer was nominated for an Oscar for Sons and Lovers and had significant stage experience. Her role as Mary Ellison is that rare 1960s war film anomaly, a female character who's both competent and crucial to the mission. Mary parachutes into enemy territory, disguises herself as a Nazi staff member, and engages in some of the film's most critical espionage sequences. Yer plays her with confidence and cool resolve, proving that not all the daring work is left to the boys. Weimark was known primarily for his work in British television, but also brought his gravitas to films like Repulsion. As Colonel Turner, he's the bureaucratic face of British intelligence, authoritative, calm, and suspiciously elusive. In a film full of secrets, he's the one man who seems to know too much while saying too little. Hawden's long career included everything from Barry Lyndon to voicing Paddington Bear's Uncle Pastuza in his later years. His Admiral Roland is the one pulling the strings, overseeing the mission with the stoic detachment of a man used to playing chess with real human pieces. A classic British villain, Nesbbit specialised in playing unctuous characters with great hair. His Gestapo officer is a delightful mix of menace and vanity. Von Harpen is suspicious, elegant, and absolutely ready to kill you for wearing the wrong cufflinks. Nesbbit plays him with oily charm, creating one of the most memorable Nazi antagonists in cinema. Polish-born and a Holocaust survivor, Pitt went on to become a cult favourite in horror films like The Vampire Lovers and Countess Dracula. In Eagle, she plays Heidi, another Allied agent embedded behind enemy lines. Though her role is smaller, she leaves a lasting impression, balancing beauty, danger, and a dry wit with effortless ease. The year is 1943. An American general critical to the upcoming D-Day invasion has been captured by the Nazis and imprisoned in the Schloss Adler, a fortress perched high in the Bavarian Alps and accessible only by cable car. A rescue team of Allied commandos is formed, led by British Major Jonathan Smith and American Lieutenant Maurice Schaefer. But as the mission unfolds, things begin to unravel. The team is being watched, members start disappearing, radios are sabotaged, and Smith seems to be operating on a different agenda entirely. Everyone is lying or covering something up, and as the snow deepens, so does the conspiracy. With one of the most layered plots in war film history, where Eagles Dare starts as a rescue mission and rapidly turns into a masterclass in misdirection, with loyalties constantly shifting and the audience forced to question everything they see. At its icy core, Where Eagles Dare is about deception. Weaponized, weapon-toting, whisper-in-the-dark deception. It explores the terrifying idea that your allies may be more dangerous than your enemies, especially when everyone's operating under 5 layers of false identities and suspiciously posh accents. Thematically, the film pulls triple duty. It's a war story wrapped in a spy thriller inside a mystery novel. On one hand, it's about the brutality of wartime decisions, men and women risking their lives for a mission they barely understand. On the other, it's a cold cerebral chess match where misdirection and manipulation are more potent than grenades. Though, don't worry, there are lots and lots of grenades. The tone is gloriously serious, yet it winks at the audience with its absurd complexity. One minute you're listening to Burton deliver a cryptic monologue about military protocol, the next minute Clint Eastwood is mowing down a hallway of SS officers like he's ordering a pizza. And it works, because the film commits completely. There's no knowing smirk, no postmodern self-awareness, just icy commitment to a genre mashup that never acknowledges how insane it really is. A former actor turned director, Brian G Hutton brought a workmanlike precision to his films. And after cutting his teeth on B-movies and television, he broke through with Where Eagles Dare and later cemented his war film credentials with Kelly's Heroes. Hutton wasn't a flashy auteur. He was a director who kept the camera rolling, let the actors act, and trusted the story to do the heavy lifting. He was known for being focused, unfussy, and highly effective, traits that served him well in sub-zero conditions with a cast that included one of the world's most demanding stage actors. Hutton retired young, left Hollywood behind, and reportedly became a plumber, which might be the most grounded third act in film history. Ron Goodwin was the man you called when you needed music that sounded like thunder in a tuxedo. His sweeping orchestral style had already graced Battle of Britain, 633 Squadron, and the delightfully absurd Those Magnificent Men in Their Flying Machines. For Where Eagles Dare, Goodwin created one of the most pulse-pounding scores of the era, taut, ominous, and loaded with dread. The main theme sounds like military dirge being stalked by a panther. It sets the tone perfectly. Cold, tense, and just a little operatic. If Bernard Herrmann composed for war movies, it would probably sound like this. A criminally underrated craftsman, Arthur Ibson was a chameleon behind the camera. His later credits included Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Anne of the Thousand Days, and The Railway Children. A far cry from Nazi shootouts and Alpine espionage. His work on Where Eagles Dare is exceptional. He captures the Austrian landscapes with postcard perfection, then turns around and makes castle interiors feel like haunted mazes. The snowy exteriors aren't just scenery, they're a character, silently encroaching on the mission's success. Shot primarily in Austria, the film's crown jewel is the real-life Schloss Hohenwerfen, a fortress that might give Dracula architectural envy. Towering over the Salzach Valley, the castle doubled as the fictional Schloss Adler, the impenetrable Nazi stronghold at the heart of the mission. Filming was a logistical nightmare. The crew battled blizzards, sub-zero temperatures, and the occasional actor grumbling about frozen brandy. The cable car sequences? Those weren't models. They were shot using rail-mounted trams in Werfen, Austria, often with stuntmen dangling hundreds of feet in the air. Production designer Elliot Scott, who would later work on Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, created intricate sets for the interiors of the fortress, complete with winding corridors, looming staircases, and shadowy alcoves perfect for overheard conversations and sudden gunfire. Before CGI, before green screens, there were just brave people, clever rigs, and the occasional insurance nightmare. Where Eagles Dare features some of the most memorable practical stunts of the 1960s. The cable car fights, staged with terrifying realism, were a masterclass in tension and gravity-defying choreography. Clint Eastwood did many of his own stunts, including climbing out of moving cable cars and sprinting across icy terrain with a machine gun. Meanwhile, Richard Burton, less inclined to jump off things, delivered most of his damage with words and pistols, but to great effect. The action is loud, fast, and brutal. Unlike many films of the era, it doesn't shy away from the violence of war. Bullets shred walls, explosions are deafening, and the body count rises with almost mathematical regularity. Yet it never feels excessive. It feels necessary. This is a mission where failure means death, and survival means you're probably the next target. Ron Goodwin's music isn't just background, it's the film's spine. From the first throbbing notes of the overture, you know you're not in for a breezy war romp. His compositions underline every major twist, betrayal, and burst of violence. The sound design too is finely tuned. Gunshots crack through mountain passes, explosions echo in stone corridors. The whirring of the cable cars becomes a constant mechanical threat, as ominous as any villain. And when silence hits, especially in scenes of suspense, it lands with the force of a sledgehammer. Every creak, every footstep, every rustle of Nazi leather is a weaponized detail. Released in 1968, Where Eagles Dare was a box office hit, earning over $21 million worldwide, a staggering figure for its time. Critics were divided. Some dismissed it as overly complicated or too bombastic. Others hailed it as a superior war thriller that dared to be smart and entertaining. Over time, however, the film's reputation has grown. Modern critics have praised its narrative complexity, practical effects, and the sheer charisma of its leads. It's now seen as one of the definitive World War II adventure films and is often included in best war movie lists. Notably, it also helped pave the way for the modern action spy hybrid genre, influencing everything from The Dirty Dozen to Mission Impossible. And let's be honest, every time someone dangles from a cable car, this movie gets a silent nod. Where Eagles Dare didn't just survive, it inspired. Its blend of cerebral espionage and pulpy action influenced directors like Christopher Nolan and Quentin Tarantino.
Where Eagles Dare is my personal favorite of the Guys on a Mission. I love Guys on a Mission. I'm gonna do a Guys on a Mission.
Tarantino specifically cited it as an influence on Inglourious Basterds, and you can see its fingerprints in everything from GoldenEye to The Winter Soldier. The line, "broadsword calling Danny Boy," has become iconic. A shorthand for covert communication and clandestine coup. It's referenced in everything from novels to video games. The film also inspired parodies, comic books, and even a metal band or two. Because nothing says heavy metal like Richard Burton infiltrating a Nazi fortress in a snowstorm. It also elevated Clint Eastwood's career, proving he could hold his own in ensemble casts outside of westerns, and it cemented Burton's status as a charismatic screen actor who could own even the most absurdly complicated exposition. There are war movies that aim to educate, those that aim to disturb, and those, like Where Eagles Dare, that aim to thrill. And thrill it does. It's not subtle, it's not even always coherent, but it is endlessly entertaining, gorgeously shot, and brilliantly acted. Burton gives us a masterclass in cool under pressure, while Eastwood murders his way through the cast like he's got a train to catch. Together, they're an odd couple of espionage greatness. And that script? It's a Rubik's Cube with bullets. Try to follow every twist on first viewing. You'll need a whiteboard and possibly a degree in counterintelligence. Yet somehow it all works. The sheer confidence of its execution, the snowy setting, the timeless score, where Eagles Dare feels like a perfectly preserved cinematic snow globe of intrigue and gunfire. So, here we are. Mission complete. The castle's been stormed, the secrets revealed, and hopefully you didn't fall off the cable car halfway through. Where Eagles Dare is more than a war movie. It's an atmospheric, operatic, paranoid, and profoundly entertaining spy thriller with machine guns. Lots of machine guns. So what did you think after seeing the movie? Is Lieutenant Schaefer cooler under pressure than the Man with No Name or Dirty Harry? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for joining Man vs. Movies on this snowy deep dive. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button, subscribe for more cinematic debriefings, and remember, the next time someone says, "Broadsword calling Danny Boy," you salute, then check your surroundings for hidden microphones.